Hey Bloom fam, I'm Tay.
I'm Tosh.
And we are Living the Bloom.
Today we have Miss Kaya Spicer with us.
Spicy.
And she is a certified sexologist. And tell us a little bit more. You a certified? You got the letters. You got the letters.
I do have the letters. I like to say the letters are lettering.
The letters are lettering.
But yeah, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Mm-hmm. I am a double board certified clinical sexologist, as well as a clinical certified clinical anxiety treatment specialist, and I am a certified coach. And so it's a lot of letters.
It's a lot of education.
A lot of education. I love being educated and love learning more. So that's me.
And you're also featured in Cosmopolitan.
Yes, I
Women's
have been.
Health.
Yes.
Other
talk about it.
Publications.
Talk about it.
Yeah, that article you sent me the other day, honey. Ooh.
I didn't get to read it.
Yeah, I have to send it to you.
You need to send it to me. Okay. I loved it. You know what? I have never heard of, you are the first person that I've heard of that's been board certified as a sexologist. That is so phenomenal. Like, kudos to you. That's amazing. I've never heard that. That is amazing. So tell us about it. Tell us.
Yeah. So can I start off with the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to talk about kind of why I got into the field of sexology.
Yes.
And why it was really important to me as a person of color to get into this field. And so I hear that a lot. I hear, a lot of people say, I've never heard of that. And that's really common. So for me growing up, sex wasn't talked about. My mom had the names for genitals. One was the and the other was the
The what and the what? The
Are you confused?
Very confused.
Okay. Everybody in the house was. But we figured it out.
Okay.
Yes. And so we were confused.
Yeah.
So imagine there's like a shame inserted when a parent won't even say the word vulva or penis.
Yes.
And so that was very, very confusing for me. I also didn't understand why we weren't saying the words when we knew what the words were, right? And then the other thing was my mom had 8 kids from her body. And so they were, talking about sex. Sex was happening, but there just wasn't any conversation around it. Any conversation around, your menstrual cycle, all the things that it meant to be a person with a vulva at the time, right? Like everything that came with being a young person with a human body, right? That, is made for sex, made for sexual pleasure, just wasn't talked about. And so I think I was around 10 or 11 when I saw Dr. Ruth on television.
And she just passed away recently.
She did.
That's who I was telling you about.
Was that
the German lady?
Okay.
Yes, she did. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
She was so bubbly,
she
so
was
happy to talk about sex and female sexuality and female sexual pleasure so openly.
At a time where that wasn't really, it was taboo at the time.
It was taboo.
She died at the age of, I think, 94 or something. So this was like 40 plus years ago that she was talking about it.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel old now that you said that. But okay.
That was not my intention.
That's okay.
We are
all gonna exactly. We're all gonna age and become more wise. But I was like, it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But I was about 11, and she was talking about it, and I thought to myself, wow, she's not ashamed.
Yeah.
She's actually really happy, and she wants to share that. She wants everyone to know that we can experience joy and pleasure in our sexuality. And that's when I was like, I don't know how she's doing that, but that's what I want to do.
At the age of 10?
Awesome.
Yes.
Girl, that's you talk about like parents not talking about sex. I grew up with my dad. So like the whole period thing was awkward. I learned about period in the 5th grade.
Yes.
So when they taught it in
that little health class or whatever.
Class.
Yeah.
But his conversation with me was, if you want a car at 16, I'm not buying Pampers and gas at the same time. Ooh. So you choose. That was our
yes, absolutely.
That was the extent of it. That's it. That's all.
That was it.
That's it. That's all.
He ain't say nothing else about it.
Yes.
And you understood the assignment.
I knew I wanted
You
a car.
understood the assignment. You got that car.
I knew not to
that
bring
green.
no baby.
What was it? The Taurus. The Cavalier. The Cavalier. It was the Cavalier.
I knew not to bring a baby
You were
in the
like,
house,
to all the boys,
rolling in
stay
that.
away from me.
you are not gonna stop
I
just
want
getting
to
my car.
drive.
Yes. But it's funny you said it. Yeah. Keep going.
It.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was the
our
conversation. See, and mine was, my mom, she's very open. She would talk to me, but it wasn't, when I think back to it, it wasn't about me having sex or sexual health or anything like that. It was her story. I got pregnant at a young age. This is what happened. This was traumatic. These are things that I don't want you to have to experience. I want to break generational curses because my grandmother had my mother at a young age, and my mother had a son who passed away and she was young when she had him. And so she did not want me to experience that, but we really didn't talk about what sex meant or anything like that. But she also referred to our genitals as what they were and said, don't let anybody touch you. You tell me if they threaten you. I don't care. You come and tell me. And so I talk to my kids. We don't say, whatever. My baby is 7 years old, and he went to the pediatrician about 6 weeks ago. We had a normal checkup, and he was like, Dr. Lindsay, the only reason that you can see my private parts is because my mommy is here. Because if she wasn't here, you would not be able to see my penis. And I was like, she was like, baby, you are absolutely right. But he was very like,
That's good.
You know, so I feel like they need to know what their private parts are so that they can articulate, hey, somebody touched me inappropriately, or I'm not feeling well there, or something's wrong, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, they need to have that language. And so if someone does, including a doctor, you know, children have been abused by doctors and people in power.
Absolutely.
And when they don't notice to say what happened and there's no conversations about it, it can be harmful.
Yeah.
And it inserts shame. And so for me, you know, growing up and having like this not knowledge, like this kind of blank slate to go on, I just got into the books. Now, these books were way back in the 80s, right? But they were, and so they were some information that we probably wouldn't use today in language, but it was helpful for me. And I did find books on pleasure. The Joy of Sex. Do you remember that book?
I don't remember that book.
Yeah, it was a long
I don't
time
think
ago.
I've ever written a book about sex other than like a romance novel or something like that, but nothing educational. Other than that little health book that we had in middle school,
5th grade education,
and they had us talk about it, or they didn't have us talk about it. They spoke about it, and we had the little book with the reproductive organs, and like girls can get pregnant, and
those are the messages that we get, right?
Like,
most of the messages are: don't do it, don't get pregnant, don't get a disease,
and if you do, use protection.
And if you do use protection, that's it. I got the other message. I don't want no babies. I don't want to be a grandmother. But I also got a lot of messages around, you know, this kind of story around you're either a whore or you're a virgin. And there's nothing in between, right? There's no sex before marriage because that makes you a dirty girl, right? There's no sex before marriage because no one's going to want to marry a dirty girl, right? Or you know, a girl that's just been out for the streets, as we say, right? And so there wasn't a lot of messages around pleasure, around what it meant to be a sexual person, what it meant to be a person with a vulva, how do I want to be touched in a sexual, situation. There weren't any conversations around that. As a matter of fact, I got the message that sex was an obligation and something that I did for my husband. And so it wasn't for me. That was the message. Now, at 11, I was thinking about sex and what does it mean and why is it such a secret? Yeah. By 12 or 13, I was thinking about how am I going to get the most out of sex when I do want to have sex.
So you already had that thought?
Yes.
At that age.
Yes, because I was raised to get married. So I started being introduced to men for marriage at around 16.
Really?
Yeah. And so in that kind of situation, I thought, well, no one's talking to me about this. I have to find it out.
Right.
So all those letters behind my name,
Yeah.
they started very early because
Yeah.
I started just digging in, learning.
That is interesting. So I don't even know how to ask the question. When you have my daughter, right? She's in high school. I have talked to her about her menstrual cycles, and I've talked to her about, hey, just let me know if you have questions about anything. But I haven't even had like a full-on conversation about her body truly, what it means, sex, STDs, in any depth. How do you start having those conversations? What would you have wanted to know at 15 or 10, 11 from your mother versus from Dr. Ruth?
I think I would have wanted my mother to look at me. I mean, I want to start there, right? To look at me, and when it comes to having those conversations, right? I grew up in a culture where modesty for women and female bodies was very, very important, right? So you covered from head to toe. I grew up Muslim. I grew up Sunni Muslim.
Oh, okay.
And, this isn't about Islam so much as it's about my mom and her trauma, whatever she experienced, whatever messages that she learned about her body. But in Islam, yes, women cover from head to toe. You've seen that. And so I would have wanted her to first look at me when she talked about sex, because that kind of, I don't know where to look, I don't know what to say. I have the same body.
Right.
I have the same body, right? And so I think that inserted shame.
Right.
And my job at 13, I automatically had the thought that I don't want to. And I was raised in a religious household. Right now I'm not a very religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. I can say, I'm a very spiritual person. And I think at that age, whatever it meant to be a sexual person, I taught it to being spiritual. For me, my sexuality was going to be my spirituality, a part of it. And I had never had sex before. But I thought something that seems so beautiful and everybody wants to do, that it can't be wrong. And you're doing it, right? It can't be bad, wrong, and dirty, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea of it being bad, wrong, and dirty came from, I think, her just really not talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's, to no fault of her own. This is how she was raised.
Right.
And really not looking at me. So I would have wanted to start with eye contact.
Just see me, like truly look at me when you're talking to me, and also see me.
The next thing is that I wish that she wouldn't have put it on me. Whatever you want to know, you'll figure it out. Or, I've heard parents say, just tell me what you want. If you have any, like you said, if you have any questions. I don't know.
May not know the questions.
What questions am I asking?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so books would have been important. And then we can talk about, if I don't know, go get a book. And then we can talk about the questions. But I wish that she would have shared what she did know.
Yeah.
In a way that, it's, I don't know, more clinical and academic from my brain.
Right.
I wouldn't have wanted to know things like, I don't know if you got told this story, but I was told that if a man ejaculates on your leg, the sperm crawls up your leg and gets you pregnant.
No.
Never have I ever.
I met, in all of my years being alive, I never had anyone else confirm they heard that story. But 2 weeks ago, someone told me they heard the same story.
What? That's the story your mom told you.
That's the story my mom and my aunties in the community told me.
That is the craziest,
isn't it?
Never heard.
And so I was a full-grown adult before I realized that could not happen.
You was like, you better no, back up.
No, I'm kidding. I knew that didn't happen because I was reading, but I would say I was a full-grown adult until I wasn't afraid of it. Right? Because there was also this kind of story in my home about you can't really always believe what's in the textbooks, right?
Yeah.
And then they would create stories like so-and-so cousin over there, brother, sister, daddy, uncle got pregnant like that by.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like,
You're
it's
like,
not
what?
true.
Like, how does that even?
Like, why would you say that to someone? So I would
Yeah.
say I did not want to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
I would not have wanted to be afraid, and I would not have wanted to be ashamed.
Yes.
I think the shame is a big thing that I see in my work.
Yes.
And I feel really honored. I just give myself kudos and pats on the back for working to undo that shame in myself.
I love that.
such
I
a
love
young
that
age.
that you do that. That is
Yeah.
so important because I think even though my mom didn't go into depth with things, she always shared her stories with us. So when I did lose my virginity or when I did have questions, I actually felt comfortable talking to her because I knew that there was nothing that was off limits that I could talk to her about.
Beautiful.
And she wasn't going to be judgmental or anything. People I dated, I made sure she met them before, anything, because I trusted her judgment and I knew that she wasn't going to judge me about anything.
That's
but
wonderful.
it wasn't, she saw me.
She
right?
saw
Going back
you.
to what you're saying.
Amazing. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Important. Yeah.
It is so important because you
It's
had
really
that.
important.
She opened the door, right? That you could just come and talk.
Yes.
And if you had questions.
Yes.
And so when you insert that shame, you close the door. Because really you don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Right? And so you're like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And those messages of you'll figure it out are also really harmful.
That's hard.
Yeah. Are there any books that you would recommend for a parent to give to a teenage daughter?
Oh gosh, I can't think of any off the top, but I will send you some.
We can follow up because one thing I will say that I love about the boys' pediatrician. So my boys have the same pediatrician. My daughter has a different one. She talks to them and tells them don't let anybody do anything, all of that kind of stuff. But she also gave Nolan a book about 1.5 years ago to talk to him about puberty and talking about how his body is going to change, how he will see hair growing and different things. And she told me which books to order. And she told him to read the books when he, had free time. And he was reading them.
Yeah.
And he still has them. I'll look them up and I'll share them with our audience just so they'll know. But he's 11 and it was probably at his 10th birthday screening is when she gave him the books and he's read them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when his body started changing, which it did, he wasn't like, oh my gosh, there's something new here.
Right. There's something happening.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and
I
there's
like that.
tons of book. And I always say support Black business, Black authors.
Yes.
So there are some Black authors out there that have written books that are age appropriate as well.
Yeah.
And I'll get you those names too.
Okay.
And I just can't think of it right now, but I'll get you those things
thank
too.
you.
But I think that's important. I think that's what I would have wanted to know. And not that it was, I would have wanted the door to be open the way that you're talking about with your mom, for my mom.
Yeah.
And I would want that and my kids have that with me. And even my grandson was like, no, what happened to your penis?
My son asked me that too. Nolan asked me that when I was little. He was like, "Why does you look different?" Because I'm a girl, baby, and you're a boy. He was like, "Oh, okay."
That's funny. He stomped off and said, "I'm gonna go find it."
That's hilarious.
It's important because we hear about mental health, we hear about physical health.
Yeah.
But when it comes to sexual health, it's like, what does it really mean? I don't feel like we really know what it means.
And preparing to talk to you, like when she brought it to me, I was like, "Oh, that's a great topic to talk about." And then I was like, "Wait, but what is it exactly? Right? Is it just avoiding getting STDs? Is it something else? Is it pleasure? Is it fertility? What is it? Right?" And it's so broad.
Yeah. I mean, it's all of that and more, right? There's the emotional component, the spiritual component, the physiological, components of sexual health.
Yeah.
Then there are the principles, right? You want to think about things like consent, right? How important it is that both people involved, or however many people are involved, are consenting to the type of sex that you want to have.
Yes.
There's communication, right? There's protection from STIs. and unwanted pregnancies or even intentional pregnancy planning. That's a part of sexual health.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, fertility. There's about 6 principles. Let me think. And then there's what I like to really think about is not just the communication part, but the shared values, right? Like, do we share our ideas about what it means to be in the erotic space? Can we talk about, our differences, right?
Yeah.
Can we find that place where we're going to meet in the middle, right?
And I wonder, do people really talk about it? Like, I mean, I don't remember having a conversation even with my husband of like, what do you like? Because I don't even know.
My husband and I have had those conversations.
Okay, that's dope.
Yeah, we've had the conversations and I would say it wasn't initially in the marriage, or it wasn't earlier on in the marriage, but it was a little bit later. Like maybe we started talking about things more in depth, like year 5-ish. And I think it really helped, right? Not that, I mean, I enjoy my husband, don't get me wrong, but there were different things that I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that you like this, or he didn't know that I like that, or I didn't even know some things that I did or did not like about my own body, right? And so we've had those conversations, and it's normal for us to discuss. Like, it's not weird, strange, whatever. I mean, that's my partner, that's my life partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's important that we are fulfilled, and that I'm meeting his needs and know what his needs are, and that he's fulfilling mine. Right.
Yeah.
So
and so talking about what your desires are, talking about what your fantasies are. Talking about, I like to tell people, one of the ways to open up the conversation is, how do you want to feel after we're done?
That's a good question. I've never had that. Okay, we didn't say that.
I want to be relaxed, boo, 100%.
Right? What do you want to get out of this? I want to take this stress away, right?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
That's
right.
A good question.
So if that's what you want, for some people it might be, I want to feel like I've just been ran through. Like, I don't want to think about anything. I just want you to take control, dominate me, time me up. There's all types of ways that you want to be. I want to be in control tonight. Right. And so having those conversations are really important.
Yeah.
Working
and control
with couples
is a good topic of conversation as well. Because I'm very like, oh no, I want to be in control. I want to be in control. That's just with every area of my life, right? Not even just in the bedroom. And so that was an adjustment too. That was a conversation that we had. It's like, girl, like,
share
fall back. Let me, like, can I do
exactly?
And that works for me. But you have
it. One less thing
take control. And take control.
Because that's sometimes.
But you don't know if you are going to enjoy that if you're so used to doing things your way and the way you want. And so I like that he press that issue and fall back, sis.
So one of the other principles of sexual health is honesty. And one of the things I like to say about that is you can't really be honest with the other person if you haven't found out for yourself.
Right.
And so a lot of times we don't do that either. To your point is if we're not talking about it, we're not talking about it to ourselves. You know what I mean? If we're not talking about it, we're just not talking about it.
You're absolutely right.
And so I like to say sexual health begins with you. Your sexual wellness, your sensuality, how you connect with your spirituality during sex. That all starts with you. And it starts with self-pleasuring in the article that I wrote for Women's Health. And that was Women's Health UK too, by the way. So I'm international.
You are international, girl, worldwide. Spicy, worldwide.
But I do think that starting with you, because a lot of times, especially people that are assigned female at birth, learn to outsource their pleasure to their partner, right? And so that means that I'm making sure that you're okay. And there's a lot that goes into that. We can talk about those social, cultural components of that. But a lot of times, we're socialized that men have this access to their sexuality, and that can come through us, meaning that I have to give him pleasure, so he doesn't leave me or doesn't cheat on me, whatever it is, or so that he'll stick around, right? So your pleasure is kind of put to the back.
That's interesting.
And so if you're not
think that's a lot of
accessing that,
women
yes,
that
it is.
probably do that.
Yeah.
Without thought about themselves first and what their needs are.
And it's automatic. And
it's automatic.
How much of that messaging were you told? Either from movies, right? Books, aunties,
even
right?
like even on TV, just the subliminal things that may come up, right? That we're internalizing and not realizing of how we're viewed or how relationships are supposed to go, or that it's okay for us to be treated in a certain way.
Right.
Even if that's not healthy. I think TV has a lot to do with how we view ourselves even, as we're aging, whether we think we're beautiful or not, whether we think our bodies need to be adjusted or do we need to lift something or tuck something or move something,
Right.
TV has a lot to do with, I think, how we
TV
approach
and
not just sex, health, but also how we view the beauty of ourselves.
The other part to that is, and I think that's really beautiful what you said, and then you mentioned social media as well. And then we don't have access to what's going on in people's houses, right? Social media has given us this kind of idea that we have this access, right?
Yeah.
And, influencers are just living their absolute best life and everybody's having all the great sex. Yeah. Well, some studies have shown that people aren't having as much sex, right?
Yeah.
And that's just our honest truth. We're not having as much sex as we were. Mm-hmm. So the other part of it is we evolve. And so to your point in your marriage, right, 5 years in, you started having conversations. Well, I also like to talk about sexual evolutions, right? So the 11-year-old me was a sexual being, but not practicing and active, right? 27-year-old me, sexually active, right? Still trying to find my path, my pleasure in that sexual field, and my sexual self, and then 30-year-old, 35-year-old me had like this boom, right? And that I evolved, right? Pleasure was different for me. Mm-hmm. And here I am now at 50, and I'm like, okay, sex is different. We don't talk about menopause. We don't talk about hormones. Yeah. So when we talk about what is sexual health, it's so all of that.
And it evolves,
right? And it evolves. Post partum sex.
Yes.
Right? After you have a child. Pregnancy sex. Period sex.
Yes.
All types of sex.
you hit on all the things, because when I was pregnant with both of my boys, I went on bed rest early, right? Nolan, I was on bed rest for like 13 weeks, Landon 6 weeks. And so during that time, you can't engage in sexual intercourse with your spouse. And then after you have the baby, it's 6 weeks to recover or whatever. So then now here you've gone, half the year just about with Nolan, like not engaging in sexual intercourse. And then after you can do it, I'm like, hell, I'm tired. Like I'm tired. My body changed after giving birth, right? Yes. And I didn't even know how to, I'm not going to say I didn't know how to, but it was just, it was just different. And so we had to have a conversation. He was like, hey, I fully understand. I will not get what all of that did to you, but I'm also still here and I need you. So how do we work that out? And it wasn't you need to do this, this, and this, but it was, hey, how do we come together to figure out how to move through this?
Beautiful.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And that goes to another principle of sexual health, and that it is non-exploitive, right? Non-coercive, that's the word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not trying to punish someone for not being able to do it. You're not trying to coerce them or use your power to force them into doing it or push them into doing it or making them feel guilty if they're not.
Yeah.
That's a healthy sexual dynamic when it's not exploitive, right? It also brings me to the point of like, there's a lot of different type of sex to have.
Yes.
And how do you get into the mood? I think one of the main things that couples come to me with is kind of a mixed desired, right? A desire discrepancy is what we call it. And so you're like, I just had a baby. I just pushed a human being into this world.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not thinking about sex.
Right. And I'm still very attracted to you. I love you.
Exactly.
But I'm trying to figure
But
this
I'm
out.
trying to, and you have a little human being
This
to take
other
care
little
of.
human being, I have never done this. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the approach after, like with my second son, was different because I understood the dynamic having gone through it the first time. So that conversation and the interactions that we had after baby number 2 were very different.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't have to have that same conversation. We had different conversations, but not that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you evolved.
We evolved.
You adjusted.
Yeah.
But how do you overcome that discrepancy of differences of the mood? Are there tips that we could use to get over that hump?
I mean, I think the first thing is communication. We can't talk enough about really getting deep down into talking about what does sex mean to you, right? What does the frequency of sex mean to you, right? I tell people think quality over quantity when it comes to sex. Yes. Are you focusing on sex that is just orgasmic and not the pleasure of being with your lover, right? You can have non-orgasmic sex for hours, right? But when you're just focusing on orgasm, I would be questioning like, well, what is it about me that makes you want to have sex with me right now, right? Taking in, put that you back into it. But I would say continue the conversation about it. A lot of people don't like this prescription, but scheduling sex can be really fun. It doesn't have to be this kind of like missionary like, on Wednesday at 7:00, right? It can be, I have a surprise for you. Yeah, consensually, of course, right? Yeah. It can be, scheduling some fun, erotic date night, right? Where you're doing things that you had fantasized about, you haven't gotten to yet, so make it fun.
Yeah.
And start from the beginning again. Right? I think sometimes when there's a discrepancy, it gets caught up in what one person doesn't have or isn't getting. Yeah. Right? And one person is kind of feeling the burden of I should be doing this. I want to do this for you.
Yeah.
But I think bridging that gap in communication can help you get back to each other.
Yep.
Right?
I agree.
Because I don't want to have sex with somebody that's constantly badgering me to have sex with them after I've said I don't want to have sex with them.
Right.
Right,
exactly.
And it's not a you I'm not having sex with. Yes. Right now I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
The other thing, Tasha, is that there's a lot of things that we look at, right? Sometimes we want to do a medical rule out, right? So is there low hormonal changes? Yeah. Is there any pain for the other partner? That's not interested? What type of sex are you having? Yeah. A lot of times what I find is that, in heterosexual couples, sometimes the man is just like, kiss on the neck, pump. And like she's pump, like, I don't want the kiss, pump.
Right.
I want you to do this and that. And remember, it starts outside the bedroom.
Mm-hmm. It's texting, it's other things. Exactly. That's what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay.
And what happens after. So when I have, mixed desired couples, a lot of times it's not, I just don't want to have sex with you at all. It's, I don't know if I'm interested in the sex that we've been having, or I just don't have the same drive as you do. Right. And the pressure is really pulling me out as well. Right. And so, we get them in this space where they can communicate openly and start to have hearts to heart and get to know each other.
Yeah.
Again.
That's good.
I like that. Recently, I had saw something on the internet. It said like over 60% of women experience pain when having sex. And so I know there could be different causes, but that's like,
that's a lot of women. That's a lot of women that experience pain.
And I think the one thing that I'm concerned about is with menopause, like there seems to be, like just talking to my cousins, my older cousins, about it. She was saying like when you start to experience menopause, it's just a more natural like dryness that some women deal with. So I'm like, oh Lord, what I got?
If it ain't one thing, it's another. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, and I think one of the things I like to make sure that women in our community is doing is going to the doctor and getting a really good doctor as well, right?
Because you want to eliminate a medical
all of them
reason.
are
All of them are not.
good.
Yeah, to eliminate especially a medical reason for the pain. I think that would be probably one of the most important things.
Absolutely, and also getting comfortable with having these conversations with your primary care or your gynecologist or whoever going to see a sexual health doctor that has an expertise in sexual health, and getting regular checkups, right? And so if you are experiencing pain, there's lots of treatments that you can do for that. But I would say get with a sex therapist, and then talk to your doctor and have your sex therapist and your doctor work as a team to help you get where you want to be.
Yeah, that's really good. How do you, just like, trying to find an OB or your PCP, how do you go about, what's your recommendation for how people can search for a sexual health therapist or a sex therapist?
So I am a member of ASECT. So it's I'm going to forget what it stands for.
Because you have so many letters.
No, well, this organization is, let me try to say, I think it's the American Association of Sex Educators. Let's look it up.
ASECT.
Because that's one place that you can go to look for.
To their website.
Yeah, to find a certified sex therapist. Okay. And of course, it just says ASEC. It doesn't say what it stands for right here. But so
you recommend women go to a woman therapist or just a therapist that they're comfortable with, whether it's male or female?
Absolutely. Go with what you're comfortable with. And I would say see a few. So ASEC stands for the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. And it's ASECT.org. Okay. So you can look there and find it. There's an American Board of Sexologists. You can also look there and find sex therapists. I would say meet a few, try to find someone that's a good fit. And depending on what issues that you're working on, if that's their specialty. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. One thing you said earlier was consent. You said consent a couple of times during this conversation. Yeah. Even if you're married, what does consent look like?
Yeah, so consent is, it looks like making sure that you are having a conversation around what you want to have done to your body, right? And it is about having that doorway, that pathway, that bridge. Yeah. And consent, I think, is so important because there's a lot of assumptions that you can make. So it's for everybody. Yeah. Married or not married. Yes. Right? And there's some, areas of consent that you're not going to be constantly talking about because you are married, right? But you want to have that conversation around, can I touch your breast? Do you like your neck kissed? How do you like your vulva touch? How do you like your penis touch? Things like that. Touching your back, do you like tongue and no tongue? Just really having a lot of conversation so that you can have the most pleasurable experience that you can have.
Yeah. And I asked that question because there was a young lady that I knew who was married. She had been with her husband for a very long time. They have 4 children. And at some point that she started dealing with her trauma. She had been sexually abused at a younger age and wasn't realizing that the way that she was engaging with her husband, there were triggers, right? And she communicated to her husband, hey, don't touch me here. That's a trigger for me. And he would continue against her multiple wishes for him to avoid doing that, would keep doing it. Like, well, I'm your husband. I can touch you wherever I want to touch you. And I felt like that was very traumatizing or re-traumatizing for her. And they now are divorced again. They had divorced before, gotten remarried, and now they are divorced again because she felt like her boundaries were not being respected by him.
Yeah.
So it was that was sad to
that's also when we're talking about power and exploitation and control, right? That the kind of non-consensual touch can be really harmful. Yeah. And it sounds like it was for her. And so, that is a consent violation, right? Yeah. That is when I say, don't touch me here, whether it's triggering or not, don't touch me there. Yeah. And sometimes you won't know until you get touched there. Right. Right. And so that's another part too around, I realized that I don't like this. Right. And so I talk about sex isn't just when you're having sex. After sex, conversations are important too. Try not to take it personal when someone says, hey, I thinking about it now, I really didn't like this particular type of touch or that type of kiss. Yeah. Can we try something different? And so it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah. And having boys and even a daughter, I am very intentional about trying to teach them boundaries. So for example, even if it's not in a sexual nature, but I want them to know if somebody says no, like, hey, don't throw the ball at me, or hey, don't take my piece of paper or whatever. Respect people's boundaries, right? As they're engaging with one another, I'm like, if Landon said stop. Because I feel like if they learn boundaries in other settings, then that hopefully will carry over into sexual relationships, other relationships where you're respecting when people say no, that's what the answer is, and stop doing that.
Yeah. And I think that's important, I mean, it can get pretty deep. We can have a whole different separate podcast on consent
on
alone.
Just consent, yeah.
But what I would like for your listeners to know that it can be withdrawn at any time. And that is good to know. And even if you are in the middle of having a sexual encounter with a lover and you're like, I don't feel like it anymore, please know that it's your right to say, let's stop. I don't want to do this anymore. And for the person that's hearing those words, let's stop, it's your responsibility to stop, not take it personally, not, start stomping around and pouting as if they owe you something. Yeah. But to say, absolutely, is everything okay? Is there anything that you want to talk about? Yeah. And stop. Yep. No one has ever died from not coming. I just want to say that.
Okay. So, one other thing. So we are getting older. Our bodies are changing. Things are adjusting. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine the other day, and she was like, I'm hot. I wake up in a cold sweat. I didn't have to go to sleep in my birthday suit now because I don't want to wear pajamas anymore. I got the fan on, I got the AC down, and I am waking up in a cold sweat. Or, I'm just off. Like I don't feel right. Yes. I feel like I'm in a fog. It's not that I don't want to be sexually active, but my energy level is just low. I don't know what's happening to me. Those are the conversations that I've had in the last week with two different people. Yeah. How do you get that issue resolved? Those issues resolved? What are the things that we should be asking? Yes.
Yeah, you might need hormones. Yeah. Don't be afraid of hormones. I think a lot of people are afraid of hormones. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And there's a lot of right information, right? And it might be trial and error for you with you and your doctor. But, you don't have to suffer. And I think that's something that would be said around that part. Like, you don't have to suffer. Right. You don't have to suffer through bad sex.
All of that.
You don't have to suffer through all the symptoms of menopause. You can go to the doctor and see if they can get some relief. Yeah. Right? And I think that's important, right?
It's important.
What if you took something and you had no more sweats at night. Your brain was back online.
Yeah.
Your energy was back up, and your sex drive started to return.
Right.
Would you
So
take
there's
it?
a pill for that.
There's patches, there's creams, there's things that you can take.
Everything.
Now, I'm not going to say that everything works for everybody. That wouldn't be true.
Okay.
But go to the doctor, because I think
Trial
a lot
and
of
error.
times we saw Auntie having their own personal summer,
Yes.
and that was our turn.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not taking care of that. We're just
Right.
suffering through
Yes.
it.
We're not. Yeah.
And it's something that I really want to hone in with Black and brown folks.
Yes.
We don't have to suffer.
We do not have to suffer.
We
Sometimes
do
I
not
feel like we
have to
think
suffer.
like it's our like purpose in life to suffer.
It's some kind
And
of
it's like,
cape
I
that
don't
we
think-
wear where we're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to suffer through menopause.
Yeah, no.
No. The answer is
My ancestors
no.
did enough suffering. We don't need to
Right.
do all of that.
Better living through chemistry.
Yes.
Go to the doctor. Find out what you can take.
Yeah.
Research your doctor. I say, as a person of color myself, I like to find somebody that is well versed,
Yeah.
or has some knowledge, around our bodies. 'Cause,
Yeah.
hey, we're different. We're not all the
Not all
same.
the same. Yeah.
So, and then there are other, other alternative things that people like to do. That's not my lane, but I have friends that are taking alternative medicines for that. So that might work for you too.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm really glad to hear is that you and your friends are talking about it, right? Like,
Yeah. We are open.
don't go through it alone
Yeah.
either.
Don't go through it
And
by
that's the
yourself.
purpose too why we wanted to do this podcast and have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because one thing that's important for us is to be transparent about what we're going through, to let other women know you're not
You're not
going
by
through these things
yourself.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really important for us to build a community where we can share our experiences and hopefully help someone.
Yeah.
Because it just looking back, like you were saying, what Auntie did, that's not gonna help us.
It's not
It's
going to
not.
help.
Situation.
It's
know?
not.
No.
And so even, with our kids, with our careers. And so when this topic came up, I'm like, let's talk about sexual health. And you talk about, I saw in your when you sent me over your notes, sexual liberation.
Yes.
What does that mean? Tell us a little bit about that. Cause I was like, oh,
Yes.
I want to be liberated.
Sexual liberation. Yes, let's talk about it. I mean, I feel like as a women, right? There's so much pressure to be perfect. To have some certain type of body. We were talking about hair earlier,
Yeah.
right? To look a certain way. Liberation from that, right?
Yeah.
Liberation from societal message around what your skin tone should look like, what your hair texture should be like, whether you should shave your legs or shave your coochie, right? I'm not using clinical language, y'all.
Right.
But whatever. If you want to grow a bush, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's taking ownership and empowering yourself to be your best sexual self.
Yeah.
For some of us, that is, like I told you earlier, no longer relaxing my hair, maybe having locks or going natural. Right. For some of us, it is putting on a wig and whatever that feels like for you. When it comes to sexual liberation, it doesn't just start with, your vulva. It doesn't just start with your clitoris. It starts with your mind,
Mentally,
right? Changing the way that you interact with yourself, changing the way that you interact with others that interact with your body.
Yeah.
So regardless of your gender, or sexual orientation, when you're in a partnership or partnerships, how are you having the best sex? I think those principles of sexual health is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, sexual liberation was getting to know myself sexually, having a really healthy solo sexual practice, self-pleasuring.
Yeah.
As well as making sure that in other aspects of my life, I have pleasure. So I can be pretty hedonistic and I can be really selfish about that, right? And liberating myself was a part of it.
Yeah.
But I even if I'm having a bad day, if I'm like, this was terrible, everybody sucks, I want to go in my house and get on my sofa, get my favorite sofa blanket.
Yeah.
I spray it with my favorite scents. I cuddle up underneath it. I get my favorite tea and my favorite cake and my everything for me that's going to make me feel pleasure. And I sip that tea sensually, right? Like, this is the best tea ever. Right? And I'm biting my cake. In every aspect of your life, know that you have a right to pleasure, right? Know that you have a right to just be free and to be liberated and to let go of the constraints that have been put on you. And talking about sex is one of them. Yeah. And so right now we're sexually liberating ourselves because we're having open conversations about the erotic space, about sexual trauma, about menopause, about postpartum sex. These are things that, you know, are taboo. And they're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. I say, wear what you want to wear. All clothes are made for all bodies, right? I don't care if you're a large body. Listen, wear what you want to wear.
But yeah, people
liberate.
And I'm not mad at you, girl.
If it's not for you, it's not for you. Yeah. But I would think, where did you learn that wasn't for you? Yeah.
Right? TV. Or your mama. Or your dad.
Or man.
Yeah.
Or social media, somebody saying she shouldn't have that on.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I love it when I see on social media, you know, the silver foxes, you know, and the women over 60 and 70, and they're just so colorful and vibrant.
I love that.
And liberated. Yes. Because they're not going to societal norms that say they should be, you know, sitting somewhere knitting, wearing polyester.
They are still living.
They are still living.
Sonia Richards Ross, who was on Real Housewives of Atlanta, her mom, and I think that was her aunt, just did a cute little video on social media of what it looks like to be their age wearing what they wanted to wear. And baby, they were jazzy and just as cute as they could be. And they did a little variety thing. It was really, really cute.
Yeah. Yeah. That is cute. So for me, sexual liberation starts outside of sex. It starts with me. It starts with examining the social and cultural messages that I got around what it means to be sexually free, right? A lot of times people say women should not have multiple partners. You know, that's not true. Women have this are just as sexual as men, you know? And so there's this idea that men have this high sex drive. Well, that's not true. Not all men do. And not all people do, right? There aren't just two genders. And so when we think about sexual liberation, it starts with you, and it starts with kind of deconstructing these, what I call like colonized mentality about what it means to be a beautiful person, what it means to be a sexual person. Yeah. And so sex outside of marriage is a thing. It's been a thing since the beginning of time, right? Yeah. Homosexuality is a thing. It's been a thing since the beginning of time. And so start to rethink that. Start to think about what puts me in a sexual space, right? And are there things that I think about when it comes to sex that I think, oh, I shouldn't think that. Well, where did you learn that? Yeah. Right? As long as you're not harming someone, right? Have fun.
I was listening to something yesterday, and it was on social media, and it was a young lady who I think is in a polyamorous lifestyle, which is not my lifestyle, but that it was interesting to hear her talk about test results, how in her space or the people that she engages with, that it is common for them to say, hey, here's my results. Like, it was like almost like, hi, my name is it's like, hi, my name is John Tate. Here's my results. She said it's literally like that. And she said, and when she was in a monogamous relationship,
people don't talk about it.
She was like, I have never seen a test result from anybody that I was in a monogamous relationship with. And I thought that was just a very interesting
that is interesting
thing. And then I was telling you that Kofi Siriboe, I think that's how he says it, but he has come out with this terminology of ethical non-monogamy. Like, he's communicating to his partner or partners, I would like to have an open relationship with somebody, else. This is who that is. And they played it out on the show Harlem.
Yeah.
They played that out.
Yeah.
In the Grace Byers, she was one of the actresses, and she was like, "Yep, nope, not for me." But good luck.
But the girl tripped.
But
Like
the other girl was like, she was like, "Here's my test results."
Like,
You
part of the first conversation. I was like,
"That's good." So whatever type of relationship you're in, it's important, I think, to talk about those things, whether it's a monogamous relationship or not. Setting expectations of, what.
Yeah.
To keep yourself safe, to keep other people
maintain your
safe.
sexual health.
That's healthy, right? To do, I think.
Yeah.
So I commended her, the young lady that I was watching. If that's, I think that's commendable for her to say, "Yep." She said she gets tested every 6 months, I think. So
yeah, that depends on the person and their sexual health practices, but it's really common.
Yeah.
In the queer community and in the LGBT, in the kinky community and in the polyamorous or non-monogamy.
I heard a kinky community now. you done introduced.
Wait, hold on. What is
So
Is that some Facebook
it's a
after
very
dark
common.
stuff?
I don't. I don't know. So have you heard of BDSM?
Yes.
So BDSM, kink is they're under this umbrella.
Okay.
Kink is under the umbrella of BDSM.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what.
No,
BDSM
yes.
but that's
Bondage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why you haven't heard of
Domination.
him. She was like, "Baby, you ain't about to tie me nowhere."
I'm just. We'll talk about that too one day.
Yeah.
But what I'm
That's
saying
a whole
is that
podcast topic.
Yeah, okay.
it's a part of kind of like what it means. Not everybody does it. I'm not going to say everybody in the community, obviously, but yeah, it is pretty common. Some people do every 3 months. Some people do every 6 months.
So is that part of like dominatrix type? Is that totally different?
Dominatrix?
No,
is,
it's under that BDSM
under that same umbrella.
All right.
Yeah.
Learn
something new every day.
Yeah.
You did not learn dominatrix today.
No, I'm not.
No, the BDSM.
I'm
She was like,
just
"What is
kidding.
that?" Yeah. Yeah. She was like,
Yes.
I need to read some books or something.
That's what I'm saying. The book I have not read a
Books,
book
podcasts,
on
social media.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, see, I be
We
on
out
social
here.
media talking about interior. Like, how can I fix up my living room and how can I be a
too.
better mother and me? That ain't came across my feed quite yet.
Did you see that Netflix show How to Build a Sex Room?
No.
Okay.
I never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Okay.
The other thing, so when I was reading your
That's
article
interesting.
yesterday, I did not know that there was a difference between like a clitoral, if I'm saying it like orgasm, like how do you put a clitoral orgasm?
Yeah,
versus
clitoral
a
orgasm or
vaginal?
vaginal orgasm.
Yeah, I didn't know there was
yes.
a difference.
Oh,
between
yeah.
the two.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's lots of different
Like,
types
I
of
mean,
orgasms.
like if you have an orgasm, you have an orgasm by.
Yeah.
So like I didn't know it was like distinguished, like a difference. So I mean, I know there's a difference. I know what it is, but I didn't know like if So I was like, okay, learning something new, girl. Learning something new.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's
I
interesting.
mean, there's lots of different type of orgasms. There's a lot, and normally when I'm talking and teaching, I talk about like 16 different types of orgasms.
16.
Yeah, and your whole body has a potential for orgasm. So you want to think about. We want to think about, first of all, what are we naming as an orgasm, and what is the intensity may be different between. For example, someone can have a nipple orgasm or earlobe orgasm.
What?
Yes, nipple orgasms are a thing.
I have never heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to go do some research because I have. And you said the ear.
Yeah, it depends on the body, right? Some people's earlobes are
Ultra
really
sensitive.
sensitive, and
Okay. I
and
see
they
what you're
can,
saying.
and then there are orgasms that
Wow.
you can experience without touch,
Where?
So like,
energetic.
Really?
Absolutely.
I've never. Okay, I need to research.
Yeah,
I need to research.
It's a fascinating. Our bodies and our minds and our energy. It's fascinating.
That's interesting. I can see how that could transpire like just your energy levels. You know, you walk into a room, and if it's somebody in there and you're just like, ugh, then your mood goes down. Or if it's somebody that is smiling and happy, even if you were kind of sad, you walk in there, you're like, oh my gosh, that's infectious. So I understand I get the concept. I've just never heard of that being
I think a lot of people
in that
have
space, right?
Yeah, I think most people, like you said, we don't talk about it, so they never heard of it. But there's lots of different ways to explore sexuality and sensuality. I would say with the part around liberation that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And adventure and exploration
Yeah.
is a part of that sexual evolution.
Yeah.
And if you're not trying new things and, you know, participating in your own sex life, I really do encourage you to start playing around. Get a mirror, look down at your vulva or at your penis, you know, at your genitals, you know, explore and play. I mean, that's what sex is, right? It's adult playtime, or at least it should be. And so have fun with it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So what would you leave the audience, like what I think that's like what you just mentioned, just start exploring is probably some good advice. But for the woman that is maybe or person that might be watching this who's not happy with their sex life and not finding that sexual liberation, I think one piece of advice you like, it starts mentally. So we need to start finding the things that make us happy. What other recommendation would you give to usher them into that space of starting to enjoy themselves when it comes to sex?
When it comes to sex, I would say start with, like I said earlier, with you. Start exploring, start with you. But then, you know, the other thing I'll say, and this might not be everyone's cup of tea, but you don't have to do it on your own, right? So even if you can't go to a therapist right now, do you have a community, like, you know, a friend that you really value, and you could talk about it together? There are books, there are podcasts, there are ways that you can start to learn. But start with you. Start with exploring your own body. Start with, you know, exploring with different textures and sensations, you know, ice, you know, warmth, you know, different things, prickly things, feathers. Start with you.
And don't be afraid to communicate what it is, how you want to feel during and after the experience with your partner.
Yeah, that's exactly
it's
true.
Not just for men. It's for us too.
It is.
It can be a stress relief. It could be, because that was one piece. I don't want to open up a whole nother topic, but I was just thinking about like sexual health and how it impacts mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole nother topic that you're opening up, but
we'll bring you back to talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it. There is that part, right? And that goes back to what we're talking about around the pressures that you have in society and your mood, what's happening with your hormone. There's so many things that could be happening. Yeah. But I will say that just like we're responsible for our physical health, getting mammograms, getting pap smears, you know, getting colon testing, you know, going to the doctor, be responsible for your sexual health, your erotic pleasure, your erotic exploration. And you, like I said, there's lots of information out there. Try to find, you know, reliable sources. And you're not alone. You don't have to do it on your own.
You don't have to do it alone.
Yep.
And it's okay to be liberated.
It's okay to be liberated.
Liberation.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. You blooming.
You are blooming. She came in blooming.
Yes, you look beautiful.
Thank you.
I enjoyed this conversation. It's definitely different from our norm, but it's important.
I think it's important
to talk about these things.
Yeah. And just like some of the other topics that we traditionally have talked about, this is one where there's so many different facets to it.
There are.
That you could come on here and talk about it 10 different times and hit on something completely new and different. And equally important, right, to our listeners and to us. So we thank you. We will invite you back.
Yeah,
are you gonna come back and see us?
I will come back. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
There's so much, you know, to talk about. Like you said, there's so much.
But we thank you. And so listeners, we will send information for those of you that have children and want to understand the conversations to have with them, we will send you some resources for them to understand how their bodies are changing and how to communicate with your children in a healthy way to open up the conversation. And then some books for ladies that may be helpful in them just starting the exploration journey.
And where can our Bloom fam find you?
So I am Duewa Kaya Spicer on all the socials. My private practice is called Infinite Zen Therapy. So infinitezenTherapy.com. Look me up. I'm also in Psychology Today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cosmopolitan. Psychology
Yes.
Today.
Yes.
All the things.
All the
you
things.
go, girl. I'm proud of you.
Thank you
I am
so
so
much.
proud of you. This is a cool, interesting space, but a very important space. And thank you for taking up space in this area. We appreciate
Absolutely. We will continue to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, Bloom fam. We'll see you next time. Bye.